Good evening. Today we will delve into 3 accounts that defy logic and make us question. Are werewolves just legends? Prepare for goosebumps, as these stories come from the heart of Brazil, where folklore intertwines with the inexplicable inside Dimon, the interior of Minas Gerais, in a small town surrounded by dense forests and hills that seem to swallow the sunlight at dusk. The story of a night watchman still echoes in whispers, passed down from generation to generation with a mixture of fear and fascination. Around the year 2000, a series of animal attacks and cattle disappearances began to terrorize the farmers of the region. These were not common attacks, those attributed to hungry jaguars or packs of wild dogs. The carcasses were found brutally, dismembered, almost surgical in their violence, with injuries that did not seem to be the work of known fangs or claws. There was something more. Something primordial and terrifying in the way life was torn from those animals. A farmer, whose name we prefer to preserve for his safety, but who was known for his unwavering courage and stubbornness, decided to stand guard on his property. João, as we will call him, had lost several head of cattle, breeding cows, young calves, the future of his farm, and was determined to discover what was behind those attacks. He had tried everything: traps, guard, dogs, even nights of vigil with his farm hands. But the creature, whatever it was cunning, fast, and seemed to disappear into thin air. Full moon nights were the worst. It was on these nights that the terror manifested most strongly, leaving a trail of destruction and a sepulchral silence that frightened even the most skeptical. On one of these full moon nights, the sky was clear, and the silver light of the moon bathed the farm, transforming the shadows of the trees into ghostly figures. João, with his old hunting rifle in hand, sat on a rocking chair on the veranda of his house, which offered a wide view of the pastures. The air was heavy, dense, with a smell of wet earth and a premonition of something imminent. The clock struck, shortly after midnight, when he heard it. A howl. It was not the howl of a dog nor the bellow of a wounded animal. It was a guttural, deep sound that seemed to come from within the earth itself, but with a terrifying proximity, as if the creature were a few meters from him, hidden in the darkness of the forest bordering the property. João's heart pounded in his chest, beating like an off-kilter drum. He slowly stood up with the rifle pointed in the direction of the sound. Sweat ran down his forehead, mixing with the dust of the day. The silence that followed the howl was even more terrifying. Every falling leaf, every branch creaking in, the wind seemed amplified in the stillness of the night. Suddenly, movement. A tall, slender figure emerged from the darkness, moving on 2 legs, with an agility that defied any known animal. It was not a man, nor an animal. It was something in between. The creature was covered in dark, almost black fur, which seemed to absorb the little ambient light. Its eyes, however, were what terrified João the most. They glowed with a reddish intensity, like incandescent embers fixed on him with an insatiable hunger. Its posture was hunched but imposing, and its claws, long and sharp, gleamed faintly in the moonlight. João, paralyzed by fear, could barely lift the gun. His fingers trembled on the trigger and his throat was dry. The creature, sensing his presence, let out a menacing growl, a sound that vibrated in his chest and, with surprising agility, disappeared back into the forest as quickly as it had appeared. He didn't shoot. He couldn't. The image of that creature remained etched in his mind, a dark and shining stain amidst the darkness. The next day he reported the incident to the local authorities, but was met with skepticism, with pitying glances and suggestions of stress and fatigue. "It must have been a maned wolf, Mr. João," said a policeman, trying to reassure him. But João knew it wasn't. That was something different, something that did not belong to this world. However, the attacks ceased on his farm. A strange but welcome peace settled in. Other farmers in the region, however, continued to suffer losses, always on full moon nights, always with the same brutal marks. The legend of the night watchman, a creature that roams properties, perhaps protecting them from something, or just marking its territory with unforgettable terror, persists to this day in Minas Gerais. A grim reminder that not everything, can be explained by science or human logic, and Juan, until the end of his days, never again slept peacefully on full moon nights. Good night. So before you get all comfy, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I'm doing here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now turn off the lights, maybe switch on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's dive together into today's story. BR-116, one of Brazil's longest and most mystical highways, cutting through arid landscapes and dense forests, is the scene of countless stories of unexplained accidents and supernatural apparitions. But an account from 2008 coming from Bahia stands out for its disturbing nature and how it fits into a pattern of events that many truck drivers prefer not to comment on aloud. The protagonist of this story is an experienced truck driver, a middle-aged man with years of road experience, who preferred not to identify himself. We will call him Pedro. He was driving in the early hours of the morning with the deserted road ahead of him, only the roar of his truck's engine and the glare of the headlights cutting through the darkness. Pedro was accustomed to the solitude of the road, the long hours behind the wheel, and the challenges that BR-116 imposed. It was a starless night, just a thin mist that seemed to embrace the asphalt. Pedro had just passed through a particularly isolated stretch, where the dense forest dangerously approached the road. Suddenly, he spotted a dark figure at the side of the road, about 200 meters away. His first thought was that it was a large animal, perhaps a stray horse or a cow that had escaped from a fence. He slowed down, engaging the engine brake, and squinted to try to identify what it was. As he approached, what he saw made his blood run cold. The creature stood on two legs with a hunched and awkward posture, but with an imposing presence that radiated danger. It was not a common animal. It had dark, dense fur covering its entire body, and a head that vaguely resembled that of a wolf, but it was much larger, disproportionate, and with eyes that reflected the light of the headlights supernaturally, like two incandescent red spheres that seemed to penetrate his soul. The truck driver, a man who had faced serious assaults and accidents without losing his composure, felt an overwhelming panic. He tried to accelerate, but his hands trembled on the steering wheel. The creature, with astonishing speed, began to run alongside the truck, keeping pace as if the vehicle were standing still. Pedro swears that the beast kept pace, looking directly at him through the window, with a macabre smile that distorted its snout, revealing pointed yellowish teeth. A low growl, almost a hiss, seemed to accompany the sound of the engine. The driver, in total panic, floored the accelerator, ignoring speed limits and the risk of losing control. The truck gained speed, and the creature, after a few seconds of terrifying pursuit, began to fall behind, disappearing into the darkness of the forest as quickly as it had appeared. Pedro drove nonstop for many kilometers, his heart still beating erratically and cold sweat running down his neck. He only stopped when he spotted the lights of a busy gas station, an oasis of normalcy amidst the terror he had just experienced. He parked the truck and got out, his legs wobbly. He told the story to other truck drivers at the station, who listened with pale faces and understanding looks, without any sign of skepticism. Many of them had their own stories of things they saw on the road, apparitions that defied logic, especially on full moon nights or on isolated stretches of the highway. BR-116 for them was not just a highway, but a portal to the unknown, a place where creatures of legends manifested, hunting, observing, or simply reminding travelers that they were not alone in the darkness. Pedro never again drove on that stretch of BR-116 at night, and the image of the beast with the macabre smile haunted him for years in his nightmares. Good night. In the heart of the Amazon, where the forest guards ancient secrets and life pulses with an ancestral force, a remote indigenous village, isolated from the outside world by winding rivers and impenetrable vegetation, reported a case that intrigues anthropologists and folklore researchers to this day. Around 2010, the tribe's elders, guardians of their people's knowledge and traditions began to notice strange behavior in some young warriors. These young men, known for their bravery and connection to the forest, mysteriously disappeared on full moon nights and returned at dawn exhausted, with deep scratches and a distant, almost wild look that did not match the serenity of their people. The disappearances became more frequent, and fear began to spread through the village. Mothers feared for their children's lives, and hunters hesitated to enter the forest on certain nights. In one of these early mornings, one of the young warriors, whose name was Tupi, was found severely wounded at the edge of the village, with claw marks that did not seem to belong to any known animal in the region. The wounds were deep, as if a large predator had attacked him, but the shape of the scratches was peculiar, almost human in its precision, but with inhuman strength. In his feverish delirium, Tupi mumbled disjointed words about a shadow that transforms, a creature that hunted in the forest, but which, in a terrified tone of voice, he added, "It was one of us." The elders, knowledgeable of their people's legends and myths, which were passed down orally through generations, recognized the signs. It was not just any evil spirit nor a wild animal. It was the Curupira Lobo, an entity that, according to ancestral traditions, was a guardian of the forest who transformed into a beast to punish those who disrespected it or to protect the deepest secrets of the Amazon. The difference in this case was that the creature was not an external being, but a member of the tribe itself, who for some unknown reason had been cursed or chosen to be the transformed guardian. The pain and confusion in Tupi's eyes, mixed with a wild gleam, confirmed the elders' worst fears. The curse had fallen upon one of their own. The elders, led by the Page, the wisest and most respected of the tribe, performed healing and protection rituals, using sacred herbs, ancestral chants, and ritual dances, trying to free the young man from the curse that imprisoned him. The ceremonies lasted for days, with the village on constant vigil, waiting for a sign, a change. However, the mystery remains. Disappearances on full moon nights significantly decreased after the rituals, but the legend of the Curupira Lobo, the guardian who becomes a monster, continues to be told around the village bonfires, a vivid reminder of the power of nature, the secrets it hides in its depths, and the thin line that separates the human from the bestial, especially in a place as untouched and mystical as the heart of the Amazon. And the elders to this day observe the young warriors with a watchful eye on full moon nights, looking for any sign that the curse may have found a new host. These three cases, although lacking concrete evidence that satisfies modern science, fuel the belief that werewolves may be more than just fairy tales. They remind us that Brazil, with its vast expanse and rich culture, is fertile ground for the inexplicable, where legends come to life and the supernatural manifests in ways that defy our understanding. What do you think? Do you believe these creatures truly exist, or are they merely products of human imagination in the face of the unknown? Good night.